and welcome to our presentation asking why build on Rookwood. First slide, please. My name is Philip Airst and I'm here as an architect and on behalf of Horsham Society. Next slide, please. I'm part of the Keep Rookwood Green Alliance. We're a public group and we're campaigning to keep Rookwood as green space for the public access and for wildlife. Now, before you ask, none of us are golfers. So this is a campaign based on doing the right thing for the site, doing the right thing for our grandchildren. We're a fairly varied group of individuals and a wide spectrum of organisations, including wildlife groups from Warnham and from Chesworth, from the Friends of Horsham Park, Horsham Green Spaces, as well as Horsham Society. We are, as I say, a broad church, but we do welcome anyone who can help us. Because if you can come along, you can bring your own expertise, your enthusiasm, your own skill set. We need everyone to help. And this is a particularly good time because decisions are being made behind closed doors, literally as we speak. So could I have the next slide, please? We need just to spare a minute to outline the context of the problem. And that is that Horsham District Council must have a local plan, which identifies where new housing should go, amongst many other things I'm about to say. But if there is no local plan, then developers can try and put houses wherever they have land, and it becomes a bit of a planning free-for-all. Now, the new local plan has housing numbers in it, and you'll probably have read in the local press the pressure from the government for even higher figures. But the current plan has 3 scenarios. That's for 1,000 homes per year, 1,200 homes per year, or 1,400 homes per year. And that over an 18-year lifespan of the local plan amounts to between 18,000 and 25,000 new homes in the Horsham district. And as a comparison, the large north of Horsham development that's going on at the moment has 2,750. So that's barely 2 or 3 years supply. And of course, the greater the housing numbers, the greater the problem. So you can see the scale of the problem, the pressure on the council to provide suitable sites. Could I have the next slide, please? Now, these larger housing sites are called strategic sites, and each delivers at least 500 homes. And the draft local plan has 9 possible sites. And if you look at the map on the right-hand side, you can see the outline of Horsham District itself in the dot-dash line. And the strategic sites themselves are outlined in the purple circles. And you'll just look at the preponderance of the sites in the north of the district, because most are north of the A272. And that's 18,000 to 25,000 homes around Horsham. Now, Sally will talk later about the balance of that and the levelling up. One thing to note is to spot Rookwood, and that's in the top centre, just in a red circle. And it's difficult to see because it's the smallest of the sites. And because it is small, the housing target numbers can be met without actually building on Rookwood. Coincidentally, Horsham District Council happen to own the Rookwood site, as well as being the planning authority, the developer, and the beneficiary. They had it nicely sewn up, but there is a small matter of public opinion because the council have omitted to ask whether we, the residents, want our council to build on one of the few large green spaces there are in the town, which of course is why we are all here tonight. So next slide, please. So someone mentioned earlier, Horsham Town has a limited amount of green space for public and for wildlife. And the map here on the right-hand side has the large green spaces marked in green. You'll see Leachpool and Owl Beach on the right-hand side, Chesworth at the bottom, Horsham Park in the centre, and Warnham Nature Reserve in the top left. Now, Rookwood is the 5th largest green space, and here it's shown in red, again on the top left, and that's north and south of the Warnham Road. And as one site, Rookwood is the largest of the large green spaces in Horsham. And Rookwood is 33% of the overall green space area. And Horsham District Council wants to build on most of that area, so losing it as green space. And we at Rookwood, we want to keep it green, and we want to keep it for wildlife to flourish, which Tim will talk about later. And also, it's especially important for health and well-being in these days of a pandemic, which Morag will touch upon. Because Rookwood is irreplaceable green space. It's not just a commodity to be sold for short-term gain. We at Keep Rookwood Green Alliance want to keep Rookwood as a green legacy for our children, our grandchildren, and for generations to come. So on that sobering note, I'd like to pass on to Peter Simpson, who'll explain the threats to Rookwood. Thank you.
Peter, you're on mute.
Peter, we can't hear you. I can't see any. I've turned this off for recording. Peter, are you okay? Brilliant.
Is that better? Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes, I hadn't realised you'd killed me off earlier on. Right. Okay. So good evening, everybody. Apologies for that. I'm a member of the Keep Rookwood Green Alliance, and I was also a trustee of the Friends of Horsham Nature Reserve. So, and of course, my arrow keys now work again. Okay, so as you will have seen, Rookwood is 33% of Horsham Town's large green space. It's the green space for Trafalgar and Holbrook West wards. It's it is adjacent to both of those, and that's the spaces that they have to use. It's also an essential part of the Horsham Nature Reserve support network. As you can see, it's a really large green space. It's probably twice the size of the Horsham Reserve itself. So altogether, the Rookwood golf course and the Horsham Reserve form a very large area for wildlife. Wildlife don't see the lines we draw on maps, and so they roam freely over the whole of that space. So it's not just the nature reserve, which is important from a wildlife perspective, because it's not only wildlife which use this space. We as humans use it as well. The Riverside Walk passes from across the southern land, and the literary walking footpath trail goes across roughly from east-west in the southern land as well. So they're already well used by us, along with the golf, which is of course an essential sport for sorry, it's not essential sport, but it's a sport which is essential for our health as human beings. The Rookwood land makes that blue and green corridors. The rivers, particularly in the south, which join up with the mill pond in the north, are really one ecosystem, and developing in that southern area is undoubtedly going to damage the ecosystem that supports the Horsham Reserve. Now, I've gone back to put a little bit of history in here, simply because it's quite varied. In 1986, Horsham District Council purchased all of the land, and it was all designated as a nature reserve. But in 1991, HDC had a nice little money-making idea. They thought, why don't we try and get some rental and business rates out of the land, and why don't we sell some of it off to make a profit? So this led to, in 1991, to the undesignation of a significant fraction of the land to create the golf course, whereby they can make some money, and also in 1996 to build the Rookwood Park estate to the south of the southern land. All of the golf course and nature reserve remain land which is owned by Horsham District Council, and so it is, as Philip said, in their gift as to what they actually do with it. Now, when the land was purchased in 1986, there were obviously some legal documents that would go with that. And what you can see to the right-hand side here is an extract from the documents which are publicly available in the land registry. And section 3.1 is a little bit mysterious. What it basically says is if some particular things happen, they're called qualifying events, then the Horsham District Council will be required to pay further sums of money to the Lucas Trust from whom the land was purchased. So we've tried to find out what those qualifying events are, but Horsham District Council have so far refused our freedom of information requests to make that information public. What is very clear, however, in section 3.2 is that Horsham District Council cannot build houses, i.e. they cannot change the use of the land into building land without the prior written consent of the Lucas Trust. So, you know, what is happening now was back in 1986 foreseen by the parties and the legal people, and so these clauses have been put in there. What we believe is that half of the money which Horsham District Council will make from the sale of the land will simply be given away to the Lucas Trust. It will benefit the people of Horsham in no way at all. So we think that's you know, it's something to tuck away and have a think about. It's really a very poor use of a resource which is in the protection of the Horsham District Council. So, you know, is building on Rookwood a great idea? Building on Rookwood destroys up to a third of Horsham's large green open space. So is that a great idea? Rookwood only contributes 800 houses, and that's just 3% of the local plan target. Is that a good idea? Is that the best use of the resource that we have, that HDC has? Half of the sale profit goes to the Lucas Trust and doesn't benefit us. Is that a good idea? And what building on Rookwood, it squanders the district's natural capital. This is something that you can ideally you exploit it, but you don't give it all in one big bang and then give up all of the benefit for the future generations. This natural capital can benefit the future residents of Horsham for 100 years, whereas the money that they will make will be gone in 1 or 2. So we feel that's a really poor outcome, and believe that Rookwood should be retained as green space, because Horsham District Council do have a choice. They can choose whether to build on Rookwood or whether not to build on Rookwood. This isn't something into which they're saying they're simply being forced into. And we feel they're making the wrong decision, and that they should simply reverse out and have another really serious think about how best to value Rookwood and how best to use it. So regrettably, HDC may not take that option, and they may simply proceed, and they have come up with a revised proposal. So we have also needed to feedback on that. So we've got 4 particular areas of concern with this. The first one is labelled 1 on here, is that large lozenge of Fairway 15. In the first version, this was going to be green space. In the second version, this is going to be built up to the hilt with high-rise blocks and roads and all sorts of things. And really, this is a seriously bad idea, because it's right next to the 2 areas of what their own ecology report identifies as areas of principal ecological importance. And these are the Red River and Baldings Brook, which go down either side of the red lozenge. So that's a particularly dangerous aspect of their proposal from the perspective of wildlife. And also, of course, it will severely impact the Riverside Walk, because that's what goes down on the right-hand side in yellow. So the second concern is the only partial protection for Warnham Nature Reserve. You can see that big red lump in to the south of the northern section. Horsham District Council are completely opaque about what will actually go in there. They say it will be associated with employment, but that's as far as they will go with it. And it's particularly unhelpful in terms of actually feeding back, and gives absolutely no comfort to anybody. It could be schools, it could be a retirement home, business premises, but whatever it is, it's still too close to the reserve, and it will undoubtedly interfere with the wildlife. The last two elements I'm going to come on to on later slides, which are the access roundabout that you can see labelled 3 there on the Warnham Road, that completely destroys the reserve's car park. And the last one, of course, is the bus route, which goes from the label 4 across to the label 3 in that black dotted line. That, however it actually goes, it's still going to have to cross the areas of principal ecological importance and the Riverside Walk. And it's just simply a really bad idea. We queried whether this should still be in the plan, in the revised plan, and we're told that absolutely it was. It's an essential part of their plan. So that is a really poor idea in our view. So here's a close-up of the reserve of the roundabout. It's very close to the Robin Hood roundabout, and it also leads, will feed straight into where the Rookwood Lake is today, which is going to be reduced to just 33% of its size, which is, apart from the impact for human recreation, is also obviously a serious issue for wildlife. But the white area you can see on the map is the car park, and it is just destroyed. What is upsetting is that whilst Horsham District Council know that this is the consequence of their proposal, they haven't put any effort at all into saying what an alternative arrangement could be. They simply haven't cared enough to say, well, yeah, we can see that that's going to be damaging. Here's what we're proposing. If we're going to do that, then this is what your car park will look like. But no attempt to do that at all, just simply run roughshod. The last one is the Redford Avenue bus access, which, as you can see, goes right across the football pitch. We think that the council should be preserving sports areas. It should not be destroying them. So this again is a really poor outcome for us as human beings in terms of health, our health and happiness. But it's also bad news for the wildlife, as I mentioned. So I'm going to hand over now to Tim Thomas. Tim Thomas, MBE. He has had a 40-year career in the RSPCA Wildlife Department as a senior scientific officer. He's advised on a wide range of issues for the RSPCA and external bodies, and dealt with numerous animal emergencies. So Tim has probably got the widest and deepest range of wildlife understanding of anybody in Keep Rookwood Green. Tim's a founder member of the Friends of Chesworth Farm, and has undertaken significant research into the wildlife and history of the farm. And that is particularly to encourage and develop conservation of this really important and valued green space. So at this point, I'll hand over to you, Tim.
Thank you very much, Peter. We've got to realise that most of these environmental reports that have been produced are based from ecologists that are located away from our area. So they rely on centrally held records for their information. Yet when they looked into these records, there were no wildlife records for Rookwood site, held on the National and the Sussex database, known generally as the Biodiversity Records Centre. So the ecological consultants on their visits were only able to record a short snapshot of plants and other wildlife that were there on that particular day. So to establish the wildlife diversity in their report to Horsham District Council. The 2-day visit by Stantec provides in their report, and I quote, an ecological support for sustainable residential development. Basically looked at what can be done after development has taken place. In the report by the Ecological Consultancy in 2020 contains a little more information on what is on the site and gives us a slightly wider picture of the variety of habitats and what they currently contain. But again, this was undertaken over a very limited time frame. We know that the golf course, for example, has been very well managed in a very ecological way and has even won awards for its work. And this effort clearly shows. We must remember that it is the diversity of habitats that in turn supports the biological diversity on any site. And this is borne out by, for example, one study that was undertaken in Surrey and showed that golf courses, for example, can provide 60% greater biodiversity than, for example, farmland. This clearly shows that well-managed golf courses can, because of their management of the range of the habitats, are far from sterile and unsupportive of wildlife. Next slide, please. So what have we found so far in our looking at the value of Rookwood? We held, as many of you will know, a 1-day BioBlitz in August. That covered a small area to the south of the site, which on that one day, with a short period of the daylight hours, a list of over 150 different species. This initiative led to a range of other visitors who have thankfully shared personal records from this year, so that over the past 7 months or so, we have now a list of well over 400 species. And importantly, some of these animals are legally protected. And these two have been identified by the ecological surveyors. This list, of course, has been sent to the Sussex Biodiversity Record Centre to begin populating what was once an empty space for Rookwood. Next slide, please. So how can we all help on this apparent paucity of information? Well, if you see any animal or plant, do send them in to iRecord, which is the central icon in the slide there. If you record only birds, then try eBird. It may be an American site, but it's darn good for UK records. And they still, all of them, go to the Central Sussex Biodiversity Records Centre database, which is the important source for all our wildlife information. In addition to these two basic recording sites, we're looking at ancient trees, ancient and veteran trees. This will also add to the protection through the Woodland Trust inventory. These online apps make it so easy to record and will automatically be loaded into the nationally available database and will help to show the wildlife value of our precious Rookwood. Thank you very much. I'll hand over now to Morag, a Trafalgar neighbourhood councillor who will look at some of the values of the site to people.
Great. Thank you very much, Tim. That was brilliant. Peter, could I have the next slide, please? Okay, so I feel as though I'm here to represent the people of Trafalgar Ward. There are many, many people who wouldn't be able to be on this call this evening. So they're very young, very elderly. There's all sorts of groups. Teenagers in particular, I think, are not represented in groups like this. So I feel as though I need to speak out for all these people. So you can see here that we've had a petition going and almost 10,000 people have signed that. And if we think of the population of Horsham as being round about 10,000 people, 60,000 people in the town, that is a big percentage of people, considering the people who actually bother to vote, 10,000 people signing the petition about keeping Rookwood green is a huge number. So thank you all for doing that. We also launched a survey, and over 1,000 people volunteered their responses to that. And these are some of the comments that we received. So it's a green space, a wildlife corridor linking the nature reserve for people and wildlife. The local green spaces are inherent to mental health and air quality, and we've really seen that this year more than ever before through lockdown. The golf course was so well used by people who had discovered it for the first time and now don't want to lose it. One gentleman told us on the BioBlitz day that it had literally saved his wife's life, that she had mental health issues, and through lockdown they'd been coming out 2 or 3 times a day to walk on Rookwood, and he said it had really literally saved her life. So thank you for that. We need to keep Rookwood green, as Horsham town is fast running out of green space. We've already seen that it's a third of the green space for these 60,000 or so people. North Horsham is being built on as we speak. And when I suggested to one of the senior cabinet members of Horsham Council that it might be lovely to keep it as another green park area, much as Central Park in New York, so famous, I was told, well, you've got Horsham Park. Clearly he hadn't been recently in Horsham Park, because walking or running around there, you quite often have to wait for people to go past each other. It's really busy already, it's fabulous, but with this number of people in the town and growing all the time, it's no longer enough for everybody. Obviously spaces such as Rookwood can't be replaced. So yes, 100 years, veteran trees, you can't just replant that somewhere else. It just doesn't work like that. It's just nonsense to say so. And valuable, affordable golf facility. It's a municipal golf facility, which is very rare around this area. It's open to all who want to walk on it. There's a lovely atmosphere between the dog walkers, the walkers, the cyclists and the golfers. I've never heard a crossword, and it is in fact open to everybody already. Could I have the next slide? Thank you. Okay, so this is a photograph I took recently looking along Fairway 15, and this is how it might look if Horsham District Council get their way. This is facing up with the literary trail. So this would be part of the literary trail as it would end up. And the next one, Peter, thank you. Okay, so this is the gap looking towards Nature Reserve, and it's where the little wooden bridge comes across near the football pitch. And again, this is the Riverside Walk. So the Riverside Walk, another cabinet member of the council had said, yes, of course, you'll still be able to walk your dogs there, but the nature of the walk would be completely different if the building goes ahead. I've been told that one of the reasons for building here is to open up this land so that all the public can use it. Well, I think that's laughable, to be honest. Next slide, thank you. Okay, this is just the footpath, the literary trail, and this is exactly where they're planning to put the bus route, which chops the football pitch in half. And again, yes, it will be open to the public, but it'll be walking along streets and pavements. As I said, I think it's the teenagers who really need this space. I've been talking to the head of student wellbeing at Collier's, who tells me that the level of mental health issues in the teenagers now really it can't be overestimated, the problem, and that so many of them used the Rookwood space not just during lockdown but before then as well, to connect with nature and the healing power of nature. We all know just walking in nature is so beneficial to us. We have pictures on our walls of it because even just looking at a picture of it is beneficial. It's no wonder that they're turning towards their technology, and that's increasing the problems, the mental health issues, when more and more spaces like this, which are walking distance to the town, are just being taken away. Next slide, thank you. So the pleas are coming. As the beautiful film we saw at the beginning was made by that family just completely off their own bat. They just made it because they were passionate about it. These two gorgeous little posters were made by two 6-year-old girls, completely off their own bats. They asked their mums if they would help them put them up on the golf course because they really didn't want to lose this lovely space. Some of my happiest memories with my children are with little fishing nets, catching tiddlers in the stream there, just idyllic moments, which, you know, the flood mitigation goes ahead and the rivers, the channels are dug out. Those moments are gone forever, just consigned to history. So these little girls have got the right idea. And if a 6-year-old can be telling us what to do, we really should be listening. And next slide, thank you. So all these people came along to the BioBlitz, very diverse group of people, and the message basically is, let's keep Rookwood as it is. It'll cost nothing to the council. It's making money as a golf course. It's open to the public. All these people were there, and it shouldn't be sold because it's actually priceless. Thank you. So I'm handing over now to Sally, who's going to talk in a bit more detail about the local plan. Thanks.
Before I go, there has been a request to be able to share comments. We will do that very, very shortly. So we'd love to hear from all of you. My role as Chair of Friends of Horsham Park and Coordinator of Horsham Green Spaces has shown me over the last few years how important green spaces are to all of us. And I got involved in this campaign when I started to see the threat to all our green spaces in Horsham town that are owned by the council. They're at risk. Today it's Rookwood, but I'm also obviously fearful one day it will be Horsham Park, maybe Chesworth Farm as well. So what can we do about this? We've shared with you our concerns, and right at the start, if we could have the next slide, please, Peter. Right at the start, you were sharing some of your concerns with us too. And it's public pressure that is going to make a difference here. We all need to make sure that the council are being fair in the way they allocate sites across the district, that they're transparent in their decision making and apolitical, and that they're consistent with their own green policies. So I'm just going to go through those. So fairness to start with. What we're asking for, and I'm sure you want to, is them to look at the allocation of sites in a fair way, particularly with a long-term view. This is a wonderful cartoon. It shows what Horsham town might be like in 50 years' time if the current bias towards putting things in the north continues. So we have a lovely, beautiful South Downs National Park, a nice rural area in the middle, and then we're in a pollution, overcrowded space in the north. One of the things that isn't fair is that all this piecemeal development is going on with no master plan for what the north of the district should look like. So Peter, could we have the next slide, please? As Philip mentioned, there are 7 sites, and he also said that they were in the north half of the district, with just a couple in the middle there. So if all of those sites up the north get developed, we're going to see 50% more population growth in this area. And we already know that over the last 10 years, we've borne the brunt of the development in the district. We know that because our schools are congested, our roads are congested. We know that because our green space, as Morag was saying, is now getting congested. Surgery is congested. Any service that we need as residents, we know they're congested. So what's going to happen if we build even more up here without more infrastructure? But as we said tonight, it's also about making sure that nature and residents have access to green space. And there's been a lot in the press over the last year about the importance of green space and equality of access to green space. In fact, some councils are having to put green space back in because of the healthcare costs of not having accessible green space. So we need to make sure there's a levelling up of green space in the district. And I think it's also worth thinking about it from the southern perspective, because if all the development is up in the north, what might be happening for the south is we might be consigning them to rural deprivation. There will be fewer opportunities, fewer employment opportunities for them down there. Next slide, please, Peter. So let's think about transparency. This is the second thing we're asking of councillors. Please be more transparent in your decision making. It looked to all of us as if Warnham Nature Reserve and Rookwood was flourishing. That's what was above ground. But below ground, all sorts of things were going on, quietly, in secret, behind closed doors. We know now that in 2015, the council were instructing planners, consultants on how to develop Rookwood. But the first local residents heard of it was at the start of 2020. So that was 5 years of doing that in secret. And this isn't fair when this is a strategic site that's owned by us. It's different from the other sites. And as a community asset, we should have been involved right from the start. And even local councillors weren't involved. So what do we want? Peter, could we have the next slide, please? We want a meaningful involvement for local people such as us in what's going to happen to Rookwood. We see it as an opportunity to address lots of challenges that we all face today. Housing is one challenge, we do recognise that, but just as important is the biodiversity crisis, the climate change, and the well-being crisis that Morag was mentioned. Many of us would like to be seeing Rookwood used to address those challenges. But we'd like transparency on that, and openness and consultation. Secondly, we'd like to know and have evidence of the benefits that building on Rookwood would bring to Horsham that are greater than the loss of this green space. We've seen lists of benefits, and frankly, they're laughable. One of them includes that there will be no significant impact on Warnham Nature Reserve, which we know is just not going to be the case. Another benefit, they claim, is a 10% increase in biodiversity, yet there are no detailed plans, no transparency on how or where that will be achieved. We don't think providing a few roof gardens is going to make up for the loss of the habitats that Tim was explaining earlier on. Next slide, please, Peter. Thirdly, we want them to be consistent. A lot of time and money has been invested in thinking strategically about what's important for the district. Yet building on Rookwood is counter to many of these strategies. So can we go to the next slide, please? First of all, green space strategy. Now that was first written in 2013 and is still current. Today, we know that what's in that document is so much more important than people probably realised in 2013, because the biodiversity crisis has really come home to roost. There are lots of comments in there about the importance of green space for well-being as well as for nature. But when you look at some of these quotes here from it, it's laughable because it's exactly the opposite of what should be being done at Rookwood. So they're saying that we will connect green spaces to assist with migration. What will happen is if Rookwood is built on, it will cut up into smaller chunks any remaining green space. Building on Rookwood also won't protect biodiversity in the way they claim they want to do. And finally, the report makes it quite clear that we are short of local nature reserve space in Horsham. There are lots of guidelines about how much green space should be available and within what distance for people. And we're short of 88 hectares. Now, it doesn't take a brain to realise that Rookwood, with 34 and 32 hectares on the two sites, would go a long way to meeting that local nature reserve guideline. Next slide, please, Peter. So I'm sure many of you have heard about the Wilder Horsham District Initiative, which we all think is a fantastic thing. And we were delighted to hear that councillors voted unanimously for it. And here are some of the objectives. Now, how do these sit? How are they consistent with building on Rookwood? Help wildlife thrive across the district. That means in the north and in the south. And we've got to look at the connectivity between Rookwood and what goes on in the southern part of the district. The River Arun's catchment area is across Rookwood, Warnham Nature and Rookwood. So if you damage that, you're damaging the whole of the district. They want to create networks to protect and enhance wildlife. Well, there's a very good network from Warnham Nature Reserve through Rookwood along the river to Chesworth Farm. Cut all that up and you're doing the opposite of that. And Richard Black, who's the landowner advisor from this new project, visited us last week, and he was really impressed with the connectivity opportunities that we have here in Horsham Town between these green spaces. He wants to make sure that we have a nature recovery network here in the town. Also, in the last one there, about climate change. So there's plenty of opportunity for using Rookwood to tackle some of the climate change challenges. And I know someone earlier on was saying they were concerned about flooding. Well, there is an opportunity to use that space to reduce flooding instead of building on it, which will create a greater threat. Next slide, please. This is the Nature Capital Investment Strategy for Sussex, and we've already talked a bit about nature capital, and this underpins what's going on the Wilder Horsham district initiative. But I think it's worth pointing out here that in this report, when it's looking strategically at Sussex, it points out that where there is pressure for housing in Sussex, including areas like Horsham and Crawley, special effort should be made to prioritise the protection of the green space that is there already. Once it's destroyed, it can't be put back. And the whole of this natural capital investment strategy report is about protecting our natural assets, particularly those that are at risk, and Rookwood is one such. Next slide, please. And finally, the corporate plan. How is what they're proposing consistent with these things? First of all, they say they will improve our health and well-being, but taking away a public amenity that is well used for mental and physical recreation is going to do the opposite of that. They're committed to showing leadership on the environment and protecting our natural environment. Well, the real leadership here would be demonstrated if they protected Rookwood and the biodiversity at Rookwood. And finally, they say they want to make sure that we all live in an attractive place. That's absolutely critical for mental well-being, as well as for the local economy. But taking away our green space isn't going to achieve that. Next slide, please. So to sum it all up, we want to encourage all of you to be encouraging our councillors to be more fair, more transparent, to live by their green policies, and overall to protect our green spaces for the future of the town and for the next generations. What we really want to emphasise is we don't actually want the local plan to fail. We're approaching this in a very constructive way and saying, take Rookwood out of the local plan. It doesn't need to be in there. It's a controversial site. It doesn't make sense. Take it out and the local plan will go through. Leave it in and there's a high risk that the plan could fail, and that's an open door and a free-for-all for developers, as Philip mentioned. So we need all of us to encourage the council to put the right local plan through to a vote on the 3rd of February. Can we have the next slide, please? So thank you for listening to all of us, but this is really just the start. What we want is to make sure that we are all clubbing together and mobilizing all the resources we have so that we can put pressure on the council to throw Rookwood out of the local plan. We know that public pressure is the only thing that's going to achieve this. We also are hopeful because already the public pressure that we've exerted has meant that they are scurrying around at the moment, trying to improve the proposals and make them more palatable. And breaking news tonight is that there is a third version of the proposal for Rookwood, which looks like it might have a school on the north, but no guarantees that that will be delivered. But it's an indicator that they are concerned that public opinion is against them. So you can all help. You can help by writing, you can help by talking to others, talking to golfers, you can help behind the scenes with our website, looking at documents, documenting wildlife, all those sorts of things. And anyone with legal expertise, that would be great too. So if we could stop sharing the slideshow now, please, Peter, we can have a chance to invite you to comment, ask questions, and so on. So I'm just going to have a look at what's come up in chat. Neil, was there anything that you wanted to comment on in terms of what you saw coming up in chat?
Could I just remind that a lot of people have still got their video off. If they'd like to put that on, feel free.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Good idea.
Sally, I have a list of the questions so far. So Michael wanted to ask the first question.
So Michael, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
I think I have. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, thank you.
Right. I wanted to make some comments. They won't be too long, so forgive me and allow me just a little bit of time. And then to follow up with a few questions, equally as brief as possible. The comments, we've lived backing on to Riverside Walk for over